You can't move the pole.
No, we can't move it. Would you like to see
Forward as well. And he was just saying what a little gem card's been right on cue, just as we finished that first haunting piece of music, a beautiful way to begin today's farewell. Before I begin, could I ask everyone who hasn't already done so to switch off their phones or pop them onto silent, just so we have the service without any phones. That would be fantastic. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to you all, and thank you for being here today. I know that Margaret and her very proud family greatly appreciate the support and the friendship that surrounds them as we navigate this difficult and sad day. My name is Julia Breakey, and it really is an honour to have been invited to lead today's farewell. It is my hope that every part of this service will honour John in a meaningful way and truly reflect on the many things that made him the special and unique man that he was. Well, it is with sadness that we gather today, but it is with grateful hearts we celebrate the life of John Albert Fox, a devoted and loving husband and father, an adored grandfather and great-grandfather, and he was a respected brother, uncle and friend. Today, memories will be shared, and you will all feel a sadness that John is no longer a physical presence in your lives. However, in spending this time together in this beautiful chapel comes the warmth of a life lived, and a love and friendships shared, and memories that will live on long after we say farewell. Today, we give thanks for John's life, and we honour his memory with this dedicated moment of warmth and much affection. Well, firstly, I would like to begin by acknowledging the people who were most special to John. He was the devoted and loving husband of Margaret, loving father of Colin, Wendy, Angela and Simon, respected father-in-law of Kim, Danny, Jeff and Gina, a beloved grandfather to Madeline, Carlin, Lachlan, Lucas, Liam and Chloe, and he was a proud and doting great-grandfather to Eleanor and Kai. John was the eldest brother of Janet, who is here today, and Colin and Robert, who both live in the UK, and he was happily ignored by Pinot the cat, fittingly named after his favourite drop of wine. Along with everyone here today and John's family, you were all a very important part of his life, and as each of you here take this time to reflect on your own special memories, may you be warmly reminded of how much he has meant to so many. Well, summing up a person like John is going to be a difficult thing to do, for no eulogy or story or memory is ever going to truly capture his journey. No matter how well each of you may have known him, our words today will never truly do him justice. Everyone here has shared different experiences with John, and each of you have known him in different ways, and there are many things you have in common. In the years you have all known John, your lives have been no doubt touched by his caring and generous nature, his sense of humour, which remained until the very end, and you have all shared in his love and his friendship. At 80 years of age, there's no question that John has left us too soon. But knowing that his struggles are over and he is now at peace, I hope will bring you all some comfort. John lived his life never wanting or needing a lot of fuss made of him, and so today we will focus on the happy memories we have, making this service a heartfelt and sincere celebration of his life. While preparing for this afternoon's service, I recently met with John's family, both in person and on Zoom, and they shared with me a little about his life and what he has meant to you all. One of the first things that I learned was how much family meant to John, and in turn, how much his family all admired and loved him. John was a devoted and loving husband to Margaret, as I've mentioned, and everything he did was for her. The long hours and dedication to his work, planning amazing holidays they enjoyed, the adventures they got to share, and the beautiful family they raised together. No matter what life had in store for them both, John and Margaret were by each other's side every step of the way, and for over 60 years they made a great team. John was also a generous and supportive father, and when grandkids came along, he was the proudest grandpa and great-grandpa ever. And in a moment, I know that Colin and Maddie will elaborate a little more on their memories on behalf of their siblings and of the grandchildren. Well, Margaret took us all on a trip down memory lane and remembered so many wonderful things about John. He was a very clever man, and his long association with Kodak is testament to his dedication and knowledge of the business, particularly in the areas of logistics and planning. John will be remembered for his love of any opportunity to travel, whether it be to move across the world for work, to move with Margaret and the family, or trips away with Margaret. They were both lucky to have many adventures together. John was also remembered as being very dignified in both appearance and manner, and you're all looking very sharp today. And he liked to dress very smartly, especially when going to see the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra or just simply out for dinner. And John also enjoyed a good wine. Pinot Noir was his favourite. John was straight up and down, he was honest and straightforward, and you always knew where you stood. In more recent years, John was admired for his involvement in the Paynesville community in particular, and there are many here who will miss his friendship, I know. Among so many things, John will be remembered by his family for the chances he took in life. His success in life with both family and work came about by hard work, persistence, and taking advantage of every opportunity that came his way. These opportunities provided Margaret and his children with a life full of love, adventure, travel, a good education, and in turn opportunities for themselves, which is something I feel sure they are also grateful for. So now just to take a little bit of time to reflect on John's life before I invite the tributes forward, here's just a little bit about what Margaret remembers and what we learned about John's life. Well, born in Barnet, which is a borough in North London, John was the eldest of 4 children born to Albert and Doris Fox. He had a younger sister, Janet, and 2 younger brothers, Colin and Robert. John was a very good student, and as a young boy, he worked a milk round before leaving school and joining Kodak, an association that lasted his entire working life. John worked in the office initially as a clerk, then in planning, and he made an impression with his ability to learn quickly about the company. By this stage, John had met the love of his life, Margaret. He was 18 and she was 15. John had a lovely singing voice, and they met through their involvement with the church choir. They courted for a few years and were married in June 1962 at the All Saints Anglican Church in Harrowfield. Well, John had already made the decision and applied to migrate here to Australia before they were married. And in 1962 in August, he and Margaret left the UK, arriving a month later to start a new life on the other side of the world. For 10 days, they lived at the Fisherman's Bend Hostel when they arrived. Then they moved to a bungalow at the back of a house in Pascoe Vale. Both Colin and Wendy were born while they lived there. John and Margaret settled happily into life here in Australia. They built a house in Greensborough and moved in July 1966, which is where Angela and Simon were both born, completing the family. John was still working with Kodak, travelling a great deal, and life was busy. He juggled work and family. He was very involved in his children's lives, and both he and Margaret made special lifelong friends in Greensborough. Well, in 1979, the family all moved back to the UK with John's work, and with the intention of staying was 3 to 5 years, but they ended up living there for 8.5. They did a great deal of travelling in Europe and other places, and Margaret mentioned they made some truly wonderful friends while they were travelling and still keep in touch with many of them. With all their travelling, John was very proud of his Qantas status and the millions of points that he accumulated, and they were always lucky to travel in style at the pointy end of the plane. An assignment brought them back here to Australia in 1987 and settled again in Greensborough. They loved it there, and a bonus was John's sister Janet lived close by. By the mid-90s, they were ready to make a scene change, and having purchased a block of land in 1992 at Eagle Point, they built a house. But before moving in, John's work took them overseas once again, this time to Kodak headquarters in upstate New York for a year. Then finally, in 1997, they returned to Eagle Point, and they have enjoyed the past 25 years living a quieter life in this beautiful part of the world. John officially retired in 1998, and for 20 years they have lived happily in Eagle Point. John spent time gardening, but got bored with that, so he applied to a notice in the paper looking for a bail justice, and he got the job. The role required him to volunteer his time outside business hours and on weekends to conduct hearings in relation to applications for bail or remand, and he met some very interesting people, Margaret tells us. Through a friend, John spent time at the Lucknow Primary School as a special friend to boys who needed support and guidance, and he also took on this role at the Eagle Point Primary School, something that he was very proud of. John then became a JP and was involved with the Painsville Cemetery Trust, where he was treasurer for a short time. Each of these roles were rewarding, and he felt very happy to be doing something of value. Margaret told me proudly that John was nominated for Senior Citizen of the Year a few years ago. Such was his respected status in our community. Well, in 2016, John and Margaret built a beautiful home in Lotus Place in Painsville, and they settled happily there with Pino the cat, and the family would visit often. Maddie lives close by, so she's been able to spend a lot of time with her grandpa and grandma, and they were lucky to share some very special times with Eleanor and got to meet Kai and give him some cuddles, which I know is very important. Well, I was told that John was upset when he didn't pass his driving test, so he got himself a scooter, and one of his favourite outings was his daily coffee at Pier 70 Cafe. He loved coffee and cake. He became a familiar face to many down the street, and he enjoyed watching the world go by. A very happy weekend for John was recently, only last year, when he celebrated his 80th birthday. His entire family were able to gather at the Wattle Point retreat, and his family remember it was one of the happiest days of John's life, and now it is a very happy memory for them all. Well, in more recent years, since John's diagnosis, his days have been spent reading the Age newspaper. He had a library of books, and he loved to read. And he has had Margaret to take such good care of him. She has been unwavering in her love and support of John. They would have celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary in June, and as sad as she is today, I'm sure that she is so grateful to have enjoyed so many wonderful years with such a special man by her side. So that's just a very quick snapshot of John's journey, and as I mentioned, a man like him is going to be hard to sum up today, but his family are going to try and tie a few memories in together. And Colin, I believe, has got a few memories and a tribute he'd like to share on behalf of his siblings about his dad. Thanks, Colin.
Thank you, Gina, and thank you to everyone for coming to celebrate the life of John Albert Fox. Or as I like to call him, Dad. I found myself over the past week with many thoughts and wondering what to say. So many things come to mind. Feeling very proud that Dad is such a respected member of the local community. It's sad how the loss of a family member triggers thoughts of so many different happy times, or why you like to do certain things. I think it was around 84, 85 when my sister Wendy, she was working in Paris, and I went over for a visit. Dad was also in Paris for work and asked us out to dinner. My first experience with oysters, naturally. They would now be a staple right for me. What about cake? Well, I thought it was just me at my old place of employment being a cakeaholic, relentlessly hunting down the almost weekly birthday cake. Looks like it's an hereditary thing. Angela passed on some notes from people that Dad used to work with. There's so many here, and that makes you even more proud that all these people, you know, think of Dad as a great person. Paul Andrews. John Fox was an awesome manager, a great leader and a beautiful person. Julie Gentle. John was an amazing boss. I had the utmost respect for him. I'll never forget him saying at my pre-wedding speech that I was marrying Steve to jump up the alphabet from Z, Zamet, to G, Gentle. John was my boss for many years, Natalie Gibson Carroll. John was my boss for many years in supply chain and building number 8. He was a lovely boss and a good man. He loved to travel, and we used to joke about his zillion gold-class frequent flyer points. He was such a fair and kind boss who looked after his staff, and in turn his staff respected him. Roger sorry, Roger Buell, I think. John was a real gentleman and a wonderful supply chain mentor to very many people. Ray Muscat, well respected and always a true gentleman. John was always willing to share his vast knowledge and experience with me, which was also valuable during my career. Just some words from Wendy, some memory. Dad and Wendy must have visited every local cafe and lunch, breakfast venue when he visited Painesville, or when she visited Painesville. Dad would get up in the morning and say, let's go out for breakfast, let's go out for lunch, let's go out for coffee and cake. Often all in the same day. Wendy would have to narrow it down to two choices and promise that they would go out for the second choice the following day. He would only have a sip or two of his coffee, but he would choose the biggest cake and make his way through it with absolute pleasure. They headed home for a nap, usually sitting outside on the patio, and then attempt the daily age quiz. Wendy read out the questions and they both say, don't know. Occasionally, he would surprise her with a random piece of information dug up from the depths of his knowledge, with accurate detail and astonishing recall. What are you reading at the moment was their standard conversation over the last few years. Reading was one of the few pleasures Dad was still able to manage. Up until about 6 months ago, when he commented that the good thing about all this was that he could reread all his books as if they were new, as he couldn't remember what happened next or how they ended. Dad and Wendy visited the library once a month from an early age throughout her childhood. Her first memory was going out in the evening, in the dark, with the street light shining. She stepped out of Dad's car in her nightie, dressing down in slippers, looking up in wonder at the building made of glass. They walked through automatic sliding doors and stepped into an elevator. Never before had she ridden in an elevator. When the doors opened on the top floor, a wonderland of books lay before them. Wendy still recalls the colour, that unique bookish smell, and to hear the hushed tones in that room. Dad left her there to go and choose his books. Wendy read and read and read, then selected books to take home. A week later, she had finished reading all her library books and wanted to return for more, but it was a 3-week wait until their next regular visit, when the magic would begin again. Wendy still has a love of reading, strongly connected with those childhood visits to the library with her dad. They had different tastes in reading, but if she finished a book while visiting, she had Dad's personal library in his study to pursue, particularly at Boyd Court, between coffee and cake, of course. Simon, a couple of memories. While I look a bit like my dad, we had very different tastes in just about everything. Music, dress sense, how we like to spend downtime. But when I was primary school age, he put aside his own preferences and take us to do stuff he would not have enjoyed at all. Christmas Day on a beach, footy down at Waverley Park, young talent time at my music bowl. He even indulged me in painting all my bedroom furniture bright red and let me help. Of course, there were plenty of things we did together that he enjoyed as well. Hay rides at Kodak Christmas parties, spending a lazy day watching Test cricket or Bathurst on TV, driving us around Magnetic Island in a mini moke. When we were in England, he took me up to Liverpool, not to go to the soccer, that would have been a step too far, but to go to a train exhibition celebrating 15 years of rail. I mention these things to highlight that while his main focus when we were growing up was his work and providing for us as a family, I believe he always I believe he always wanted what I think most fathers want, to do better than his own father. He never talked about his own childhood because his memories were not great ones, but it's a reflection on him as a father. You can tell us how to turn the tape off right now. As well, of course, as my mum, that when we gather as a family, we do talk about our childhood, telling little stories. Dad might not be the focus of many of those stories, but he enabled them, and his choices as a husband and a father always made our life better. Dad set a high bar as a parent that I hope I can live up to. Thanks, Dad. Last week, the family had a Zoom meeting to discuss today. We didn't want it to be about us. It needs to be about Dad, and quite rightly so. But the important memories will invariably involve you with the person who has made these memories possible, Dad. Thank you for these memories and the opportunities you have given me in my life. I will love and miss you forever.
Thank you so much, Colin. It's not an easy thing to do, and it's very emotive today, and it's very clear of the love and respect that you all have for your dad, and it's lovely memories. Now it's Maddie's turn. She's got some memories she'd like to share on behalf of the grandchildren. Thanks, Maddie.
I am Maddie, the eldest of John's 6 grandchildren, and today I have the honour of sharing our reflections with you all. In order of age, I'm going to start with some words from his youngest grandchild, Chloe. Grandpa, thank you for playing games with me, like Monopoly and chess. It was really fun. I will miss these fun times with you. Love, Chloe. The next piece is written by Liam. My grandpa was a great man. I have lots of good memories with him. Probably the most pronounced one is when he and my grandma were living in Eagle Point. They had a tractor. Grandpa used to take me out on it every time we went to visit. I loved my grandpa, and I will always remember him for the amazing man he was. Thank you. Lucas has composed the following. When I was little, I mostly associated my grandpa with his tractor. We would ride it around together around the garden. Even when he moved and sold the house and tractor, in my mind I still saw us riding the tractor together when I was there with him. I will always remember and cherish those moments. Memories are the last thing we will have of him, and I'm so grateful I have 9 of us together, going to restaurants and cafes, playing Monopoly or just talking. I know that I will always carry these memories with me in my heart and my mind forever. These reflections are from my brothers, Carlin and Lachlan, and from me. To varying degrees, Grandpa taught my brothers and I to drive. He was a good instructor, always calm, and he instilled in us good driving habits. For example, he was a real stickler for having your hands in the right positions on the steering wheel at 10 and 2 o'clock. Carlin fondly recalls one driving lesson when Grandpa grabbed onto the door handle for dear life, which I know he did for all of us, and then said afterwards he didn't even realise he was doing it. Carlin enjoyed it when Grandpa took him to the Archery and Adventure Fun Park, where, like everywhere in Bairnsdale, Grandpa knew the owners personally and would proudly introduce Carlin as his grandson. All three of us agreed the common theme of the ride-on mower or tractor brings a lot of great memories of Grandpa. From sitting on his lap helping him steer as youngsters, to being towed along in the back of the trailer, to graduating to solo driving and eventually mowing. Carlin remembers once they were clearing trees on the property. He told Grandpa the mower wouldn't stop, and Grandpa didn't believe him. A week later, Grandpa went through the back fence on the mower after it failed to stop. Fair to say, the mower went into the repair shop that week for new brakes. Lockie and Grandpa would always shake hands and say, "G'day, old chap." Their dry sense of humour was a perfect match. Perfect, as Grandpa used to say to us. His community activities were always of great interest, and Lockie loved to hear about any bail justice work he'd done. He'd ask if he'd locked anyone up recently and what they'd done. Grandpa was very diplomatic in his response and would say, "allegedly," a lot. And then he'd get a cheeky glint in his eyes and say something like, "They were a very interesting person." As mentioned in the eulogy, Grandpa was involved in the Painshill Cemetery Trust. Carlin remembers he was going to the AGM as treasurer with the intention to resign once. He came home elected president. I remember the time he gave the fence of Painshill Cemetery a fresh coat of paint. It was a deep green colour. When he walked in the door that evening, somewhat repainted himself, I said, "Did you get any paint on the fence?" He was a really great grandpa. I am fortunate to have had him for 31 years of my life. And for 3 of those years, I lived with my grandparents, and it was a real privilege. So yeah. In 2009, I called to ask them if I could move in for a little bit, maybe 3 to 6 months. And Grandpa, who answered the phone, was so surprised that without hesitating, he said, "Yes, that will be fine." Well, I better check with the boss, but I'm sure she'll say it will be fine. 12 years later, he loved reminding me with great amusement that I was a fair way into my 3-month stay in East Gippsland. The time I lived with them was the only time I've never been late to anything. I would always ask, "What time do I need to be ready, Grandpa?" To which he'd respond, "Wheels turning at 5:30 p.m. At 5:25, he'd be sitting in the car in the garage, engine on, checking his watch. And boy, did you want to make sure you're in the car, seatbelt on at 5:29, because the wheels were turning the second the clock turned 5:30 p.m. Grandpa was not good at operating a mobile phone. He used to go into the Telstra shop and ask for the oldest phone they had with real buttons. He had a flip phone until 2017 and was disgusted when he had to get a smartphone. He was good with computers, however, I documented one evening when technology was challenging him. 29th of January 2010. Grandma, "Are you using the right jigger, John?" Grandpa, "Yes, I'm using the right jigger. Maybe that transmitter thingy's gone kaput." I already miss his presence. I miss the pure joy on his face as he played matchbox cars with my daughter Eleanor, who he affectionately called the Small. When I was pregnant with Kai, we joked that he would have to call him the Big. and if you've seen our rather round little boy, you'll agree it might have been a premonition. Michael and I were made sure Eleanor and Kai growing up knowing all about their granddie and the few precious cuddles that you and Kai got to share. And to finish, I'll miss the way Grandpa answered yes when I asked him, cream or ice cream with your dessert? Because what kind of ridiculous choice is that when you can just have both? And an extra big slice of pudding. Thank you.
Thank you, and beautiful memories on behalf of all the grandchildren. I know that both the grandparents were very proud of you, as they are of all of their grandchildren. And Margaret especially is very grateful to have had Maddie's help and support over the last couple of weeks, especially planning for the funeral, just tying everything together, having her live so close. So lovely tributes. If there is anyone that would like to come forward to share a memory or a story or a tribute, there is a chance to do so. I know it's not an easy thing to do. Connie and Andy are whipping up a storm in the kitchen, so there's some refreshments on offer when we do finish here today. So if you are able to stay and join Margaret and her family, that's a lovely way to continue sharing memories and stories and not be up here on a show in a less formal setting. So an invitation to join Margaret is there certainly when we finish here today. A beautiful photo presentation has been put together with another piece of music by Handel, and this is a lovely way to reminisce on John's life through some photos. So please enjoy this trip down memory lane of John's life. What a beautiful photo presentation of a life of beautiful family and some adventures and friendship, and a perfect photo finish choosing your pictures exactly how you wish to be remembered, I'm sure. But back in 2010, Maddie tells me she wrote something about her grandpa, and it was a few memories. And her mum Wendy is going to come forward and share with us these memories of Grandpa, and they just really reiterate, I think Margaret wanted to share today, because it really just reiterates exactly what John means to his family. So thank you, Wendy.
I was remarking how Grandpa, he'd be looking down, saying, "What's all this fuss about? When's the coffee cake? Get on with it." So, I'm reading this on behalf of the writer. It's titled Grandpa. Create a home in your community. See the structure rise up from a solid base of mutual understanding and furnish it diversely. Then be present in it. Take in every moment and embrace change whilst carefully sculpting your final footprints in the hearts of tomorrow. This is the person I strive to be, not a glorified presence in my community, but a silent one that creeps into the hearts of those who need someone else's strength to find their own courage. This is an inspired vision that comes from my grandpa, a humble man with a warm, inclusive heart. As we walked through the local primary school, heads had turned and little voices reached incredible pitch as they screamed out his name. Little legs sporting checkered school dresses and navy blue shorts were drawn to him like magnets, for no more reason than knowing he would take the time to make them feel like they're his friend and ask what's in their lunchbox today. Bright eyes and smiling faces surrounded us, and one of those faces had a few more laughter lines, but the youthful energy shining from his eyes would make you think twice about who the children were in that moment. "Can you be my special friend, John, please?" As we continued on our way, walking through playgrounds and classrooms, more children approached us. "Are you coming into our class today, John?" It seems I had been associated with the most popular boy in school without even knowing it. A special friend is what we all need, just a little bit of time dedicated to us and our interests. That little bit of encouragement so that when we get to the edge of primary school and we're ready to go on, they'll nudge us and we'll fly. I'd seen the time and care that my grandpa had put into the happiness of these children, buying activity books, mastering how to fly not only a single string but a double string kite, and learning to bake a cake. Though I'm afraid I think the children may have taught him when it came to the kitchen. He had become very good at telling jokes, and his sense of make-believe had been a gift to all. One his small grandchildren had also lapped up eagerly. One of the most important roles we have as humans is to share. Share our stories, our experience, and warmth in our hearts. This is what inspires people, and this is what my grandpa taught me. As a young girl, he also taught me good table manners and to be respectful. As I carried those skills into my adult life, he continued to feed me small wisdoms. France is the best place to go for lunch. And mowing the lawn with the ride-on mower is a great way to look busy when Grandma has a long list of chores to be done. He was a real-life inspiration, and I only had to look right in front of me to find it. There are those people who change the world, and there are those who may change just one life. And Grandpa, you changed mine.
Beautifully read, Wendy, and certainly captures the essence of the sort of person that John was. And beautifully written, Nathan. Now we have a moment in the service that we like to call a personal farewell, and it is where I do invite families. So in this case, I'm going to invite John's family forward, and then anyone else who wishes to, after they have come forward, to place a piece of rosemary or a rose petal. Kelly's got a basket of rosemary and rose petals, and I do invite Margaret and her family first, and then anyone else who wishes to come forward, just to place a piece onto John's coffin, and it's a lovely way for you to come forward and say one last farewell. We'll just have some background music to play while we do this. today's service has been a most meaningful way for you all to pay tribute to John. The memories and the photos and the stories shared have made up just a small part of the sort of person that he was to you all. Each of you here will remember the good times that you spent with John, the things that you have learned from him and the memories that you have to keep close to your heart. Time stands still for just a moment as we acknowledge that John has touched your lives and he has left an imprint in your hearts and in your minds. His passing has certainly left a void, but I hope it gives you all some comfort knowing of how much happiness you have given him and of how much he appreciated and dearly loved you all. One final short reading is on the inside cover of your booklet, and it's one that I share on behalf of John's proud and loving family. It's titled As We Look Back Over Time. As we look back over time, we find ourselves wondering, did we remember to thank you for all that you've done for us, for all the times you were by our sides to help and support us, to understand our problems and to accept our defeats, or for teaching us by your example the value of hard work, good judgment, courage and integrity. We wonder if we ever thanked you for the sacrifices you made and for the simple things like the laughter, the smiles and the good times that we shared. If we had forgotten to show you our gratitude for all of the things you did, we're thanking you now and we are hoping that you knew all along just how much you meant to us. Well, today has been a day for fond and loving memories and will be remembered for many reasons, but mainly I hope today will be remembered as a very special day in which you were able to pay your last respects and say a fond farewell to a man whom you are all privileged to have known. John was never one to be in the spotlight, but today has certainly been his day to be remembered fondly and most proudly, and I'm sure if he could, he would thank each and every one of you for being such an important part of his life. Now, as we finish today, we are going to make our way outside just for a moment while we do set up for the refreshments. So it's a bit cold outside, so we won't leave you back there for too long, but just a couple of minutes while we set up for the refreshments, and then I invite you back inside to enjoy the celebration of John's life and his memories. So thank you again for being here today, ladies and gentlemen.
Stand